Good morning, everybody. Hopefully everybody doing well this morning. I'm doing okay. I must admit, the week has been pretty steady, so I think everything's going to be all right in that regard. So I'm going to take this morning to be a little bit vulnerable, okay? Let's cut straight to the point because I don't want to drag this out because I have a point to make. So one of my uncles, man, who I'm very close with, we had a conversation, and he told me in conversation that he had been hearing some things about some situations that I was going through, some individuals around me, man, who I thought might have been trustworthy. He was putting me on notice that a lot of things were being said that weren't true. So now, am I surprised that that's going on? No, I'm not surprised because, that's just the way of things, especially if you committed yourself to live a certain way. But he said that stories were being told, thoughts were being passed on that were absolutely not true. So much so that there were things that me and him personally went through together. And individuals were creating stories. They were coming up with their own narratives based on what they thought and what they believed. So now, in layman's terms, a lot of times when you run into a situation where a person is fabricating, we call that lying. You want to be respectful, and of course, like I mentioned, the podcast is about positivity, but we call that lying. But at any rate, my real focus in this particular podcast, this episode, man, is to help the young men among us, or the men in general, to deal with situations just like this one. So, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, oh man. He said, Mark, you always talking about positivity. You're always talking about making intentional decisions. What you gonna do now? Well, that's simple. If I can get this mount right, come on, man, what we doing? Okay, there we go. I think. Okay, that'll work. We'll just have to ride it out. So what am I going to do? What's going to be my response? As a younger man, I probably would confront the people who are responsible for saying the things that they're saying. But as an older gentleman, what's going to be my response? Well, here is where wisdom comes in. Okay? Now, I told you, wisdom is going to protect you. Okay? So, when you hear situations like this, where people are creating a narrative, and then they're trying to insert you into the narrative, clearly they've drawn or come to the wrong conclusions about you. So how did they get to these conclusions? Well, think about it for a moment. When a person decides to tell a story, and that person who's telling the story does not have all of the facts, they don't know the story completely, what do they tend to do? As human beings, what do we tend to do? We tend to fill in the gaps in the story, right? Now, whether the information that we use to fill in the gaps is true or not, we fill in the gaps with information that cannot be verified or information that doesn't fit. Now, why is that the case? Because most of the times in stories, individuals telling the story, they are not firsthand. They weren't there. They hadn't talked to the person that was there. And if they did, the perspective isn't one that's objective. So you have a person who's telling a story. They're formulating the areas where the story has gaps. And they're telling this story as if this is a true story. Right? So how does wisdom come in to protect you? Those gaps that the individuals fill in most of the times, and then a lot of stories, have a profound impact on how the story ends. It has a profound impact on how people view you after the story is told, based upon the way that they fill in those gaps, right? And usually, like I mentioned, those gaps are filled in with information that cannot be verified. It's this person's opinion of you. It's how they see you. So how does wisdom protect you? You don't pay them no attention. You don't pay them any attention. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to confront anybody. You don't have to do that. You don't pay them no attention. Because here's the thing. In life, no matter what you do, I don't care if you live the life of someone who was perfect. You never made a mistake. You never did anyone wrong. Individuals will still create in their minds a narrative where you're the enemy. That's just how some of this works sometimes. So the response of having no response is best. Because let's say, for instance, just for the sake of conversation between the two of us, let's say, for instance, you did, as the young people say, crash out. My team uses that term a lot. They say, oh, he gonna crash out. You got to get him. So let's say, for instance, you did. You decide, okay, I'm gonna crash out. I'm gonna find this person, I'm gonna confront him, I'm gonna talk crazy to him. What have you just done? In real time, you've given that person a basis now to believe the way that they believe about you. You've given them reason to continue to paint this negative narrative of you because you crashed out. So that's the way that wisdom protects you. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I've been doing. Because in situations that you're involved in, you come to find out who people really are. They show you. And so you move according to how they show you. But it's not an instance where, as men, we don't need to be allowing emotion to dictate what we decide to do. It can't. And that's the reason why I say it's so important to develop, to gain wisdom. The ability to use the knowledge that you've acquired in the way that's going to benefit you and those around you. Because in this particular instance, because of the fact that I'm not going to allow emotions to take over, and I'm not going to allow what's being said to affect the way that I move on the day-to-day basis, then see, I'm freed. I'm freed from the added energy that it would take to try to disprove something that clearly wasn't true. Why am I fighting this? If this is not who I am, if this is not the life that I lead, if this is not the kind of man that I show to the world, if this is not the type of person that I am as a father and as a family head, then I don't have to respond. I don't have to respond. I don't have to be angry. I don't have to do any of that. But remember now, what I'm advocating for. Give me 1 second. So, what do I want you to focus on? What do I want you to take away from this particular conversation that we're having this morning? Think it through. Think it through. So this is the strategy that I want you to use. I want you to remember this. In situations that you'll find in life and difficulties that you might be going through, remember, there's no one that's walking around on the planet that has the full story. No one has that. They're not privy to that kind of information about you. And why do I say that? Let's mill that out a little bit. Why am I saying they don't have the full story? It's simple. The full story would mean that they would know your past completely. They'd have to know who you are presently, and then they'd have to know your potential in the future. That's having full knowledge of you. And no one has that. So, in an attempt to paint a narrative, to tell a story about you, individuals have, and everyone has done it. I've done it myself. That's why I can speak so calmly about it. Individuals to fill in the gaps in the story. They'll insert information that's based on their opinion. And a lot of times the information that they insert, it steers the direction of the story. It paints a picture, whether they know it or not, whether they're conscious of it or not, it paints a picture about who the story is about. So if you have that knowledge already, if you know that that's a predisposition for most people. Now you have some people that if they don't have the whole story, they don't get involved. And if they don't have the whole story, they don't speak on it. Some just not going to speak anyway. But that's the minority that we're talking about. When you know that it's a person's predisposition to handle your reputation and who you are or who they say you are like that, now you're ready. You're armed with a strategy now that you can deal. You can cope. You can cope with a situation where someone may be saying something that's absolutely not true about you. You don't have to respond. You don't have to use all that added energy to try to prove yourself. But I will say this. This is what I'll say. The first reaction, I think, the first reaction to a situation like this is understandably anger. You know, how could somebody come to a negative conclusion about you if in life what you tried to do? And that's what I tried to do. You tried to be positive, especially now. You try to be positive, you try to be a good dude, and people develop stories about you in an attempt to absolutely destroy your character. Right? So how do you handle that? Well, you handle it with wisdom. Because no matter what's said, no matter what story they generate, it's up to you whether or not that story is taken seriously. Because even though there are individuals among us who are content to come up with things that aren't true, there are also individuals among us who say, hey, that doesn't sound like him. They say, hey, I know him personally, and that's not the kind of person that he is. And you know, at the time, one of the things too that I felt, I was kind of upset at the moment, not because of what was being said or who was saying it, but because it affected my uncle so much. You know, I could tell that it was something, after having the conversation with him, it was something that, you know, it kind of bothered him. And it bothered him because he has a front row seat to the majority of the things that happened in my life now. It bothered him because he knew that that wasn't what this was all about. Now, he had the inside track if anybody had it. And so it bothered him. But my response, I try to make sure that it's measured. Because I can't come on the podcast and have a conversation with you all about being or having self-control, about putting your best foot forward, about accountability, about discipline, about determined. I can't have a conversation about any of that if when I'm confronted with a difficulty, I respond in a way outside of what I'm asking you to do. I'm not going to talk crazy about the person, right? I'm not going to retaliate because none of that is necessary. Because it goes back to an old saying that my father used to say. He used to tell us this all the time, right? He said that the people that know you don't believe, and the people that believe don't know you. And that makes all the sense in the world. The people that believe the statements, the negative statements, you know, somebody trying to ostracize you, the people that believe in that, they don't know you as a person. They hadn't taken the time to get to know you. They don't know your struggles. They don't know your difficulties. They don't know any of that, right? They don't know it. So there's absolutely no way that they can come to a conclusion about who you are because they don't know you. And then the folks that do know you, they don't believe. They don't believe. They don't believe the things that's being said. So it's absolutely unnecessary. Absolutely unnecessary. If this is what you think of me, positive or negative, if this is what you think of me, if it's not having a direct impact on my ability to provide for my family, if it's not having a direct impact on the things that I have to produce as necessities, then hey, I'm gonna let you have it. I'm gonna let you have it. Because the truth of the matter, and now we're being realistic, right? I push positivity because I think it's the best way to go. I think it's better to have hope in a situation becoming better than just to give up into despair. I don't believe in that. I believe as individuals, we have the ability to push through. We can be strong and we can push through, and we can take difficult situations and transmute them into something good. That's what I think. I believe that. That's what I think. So I don't think that it's necessary for any kind of response. I don't. After looking at it through the lens of the strategy that I've just given you, it's unnecessary to take added energy to try to fight a battle that you don't have to fight. And I understand that in situations like that, the first response is anger. And of course I get that. I understand. But here's the thing that I want you to do. If there's anger involved, that added drama, right? What I would want you to do is I want you to take that energy that's there, and I want you to add it to your drive. Okay? You take that and you do something positive with it. Push yourself by means of it. Let it be fuel for your fire. Now, of course, what I mean is everything positive that you can think to do it. What do I mean? You're in the gym, that extra 5 pounds or that extra 10 pounds that you've been asked to put up over you, you can do it with that, right? You're tired. You're working on a project for work, for your employment. You don't think you have the necessary energy. Think about this situation, right? So you're using the negative situations in life. You're using them to push you forward. You're using them as fuel. Fuel that, if you allow it to, it can push you to be better than what you are now. That is the course of wisdom. We don't let negative things cause us to become negative. We don't let negative situations push us into things that are outside of our character. That's unnecessary. That's unnecessary. You got people that are quick to respond, and they respond based off emotion. What I'm asking you to do is to filter what you feel and what you do through wisdom. Is this the wise course to take? In the end, will I benefit from crashing out? Will I benefit from staying calm? Will I benefit from realizing that some things that you encounter are just because of human imperfection? If you can come to that realization, if you can allow wisdom to filter what you think, what you say, and what you do, then a lot of times the wise course to take is just to allow time to keep rolling. Because it's a funny thing about time, man. People say things that, in your mind, aren't true or can't be substantiated. But over time, those things, either they prove to be true or they prove to be false. Over time. So it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. You can say, okay, this is what you said. But over time, this is what he proved. This is what you broadcast to everybody around you. But after some time, me getting to know him and talking with him and having conversation and seeing him in high pressure situations, that's not the person I know. That's not him. So now you understand just a little bit of the thought process that I have in regards to how I keep my peace, how I remain composed. You can see that now. And I want to share that with you because, like I said, a lot of times I'm giving out theory. I'm giving out theory. To you, it's theory. To you all, it's theory. And I say it's theory because you hadn't actually experienced it. You know, when I'm speaking to you about the situations that, in order for you to understand them, you would have to experience them. So it's theory. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But I think it goes a lot further if you can look at situations that I'm confronted with in my life, and you can say, well, Marcus was able to navigate that particular situation with this strategy. Maybe I can use that same strategy and maybe it'll work out well for me. And that's all I want. That's all I want. That's the key to life. That's the key to it. Or to having a good life, the key to it is strategy. Strategy, man. Just don't allow things just to happen on the whim. If you can plan for it, if you can put some thought into it, some directed effort to be intentional, then do that. It's okay. In the end, it'll work out. Get that light out y'all face. So, of course, you know it's time to go to work. And you know that I appreciate you all. But more than that, I hope that what I said this morning was beneficial. I hope that it allows you to look at situations that you might be placed in and to have a positive strategy for dealing with maybe difficult situations where people are saying things about you. Maybe they're trying to destroy your reputation, or they have a certain view of you and they want that to be the prevailing view. You don't have to respond. You don't have to become upset. The only thing you have to do is stay the course and then commit yourself to strategies that keep you positive, that keep you moving forward. And in the end, you'll see the benefit for it. I promise you. I absolutely promise you that it'll be good for you. You'll be okay. So, once again, you know I love you. How do we end this? Y'all be easy. Peace.